Kenneth Burke's counter statement, published in 1931, stands as a pivotal work in 20th century literary and rhetorical theory. It challenges the prevailing aesthetic doctrines by situating art within the interplay of psychology, form, and dynamics. Written during a period of important shifts in artistic and intellectual thought, the book's essays reject the notion of art as an autonomous realm divorced from societal concerns, instead positing literature as a form of symbolic action, deeply engaged with human motives and communal life. Burke's approach diverges sharply from the emerging new critical emphasis on textual autonomy, instead foregrounding the transactional relationship between artist, artwork, the analysis of form, rhetorical strategy, and the social function of art. Burke constructs a framework for understanding literature as both a psychological engagement and a communal act, reshaping how critics conceptualize the role of aesthetics in human experience. The opening essay, Psychology and Form, lays the groundwork for Burke's exploration of how artistic form operates as a mechanism for shaping audience response. He distinguishes between form and information, arguing that while information deals with the communication of facts, form concerns the arrangement of elements to evoke specific psychological effects. Form is not merely structural but psychological, a carefully orchestrated sequence that creates anticipation, tension, and catharsis. Drawing on examples from drama such as Shakespearean tragedies, Burke illustrates how playwrights manipulate pacing, repetition, and reversal to guide the audience's emotional journey. A soliloquy's rhythmic cadence or a plot's delayed resolution becomes a tool for eliciting empathy or suspense. This focus on form as an experiential catalyst highlights Burke's belief that art's power lies not in its content alone, but in its ability to orchestrate the audience's inner life, aligning their psychological rhythms with the work's unfolding logic. In his essay Lexicon Rhetorica, Burke shifts to examining the granular elements of rhetorical devices, dissecting how specific techniques like metaphor, irony, hyperbole function as instruments of persuasion and emotional resonance. Here he expands the scope of rhetoric beyond traditional oratory, framing it as inherent to all artistic communication. Burke's analysis of metaphor, for instance, reveals its capacity to forge unexpected connections, jolting the audience into new perceptions. By juxtaposing disparate ideas, a metaphor becomes a perspective by incongruity, a concept he would later develop more fully, challenging readers to see the familiar through a defamiliarizing lens. Similarly, irony emerges not as mere sarcasm, but as a structural device that layers meanings, inviting audiences to navigate tensions between surface and subtext. These rhetorical strategies are not decorative flourishes, but essential tools for engaging the audience's intellect and emotions, thereby bridging the gap between private aesthetic experience and collective understanding. The essay Poetic Process delves into the generative act of creation, positioning poetry as a symbolic negotiation between individual societal norms. Burke rejects the romantic ideal of the poet as an isolated visionary, instead framing the poetic process as a dialectic between the artist's inner world and external cultural pressures. Poetry, in this view, becomes a site of stylized resistance where the artist both reflects and critiques prevailing ideologies. Burke's analysis of modernist poets like T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound illustrates how fragmentation and illusion serve not as mere aesthetic experiments but as responses to the dislocation of modern life. Poet's struggle to reconcile personal vision with communal language mirrors broader societal tensions, rendering the poem a microcosm of cultural negotiation. This essay highlights Burke's insistence on art's embeddedness in social reality, rejecting the notion of pure aesthetics in favor of a dynamic interplay between creation and context. Central to Counterstatement is the essay The Status of Art, which confronts the ethical and social responsibilities of the artist. Burke dismantles the ivory tower of art for art's sake, arguing that art participates in the moral and ideological currents of its time. He contends that even the most abstract or non-representational works carry implicit worldviews, shaping audiences' perceptions of value and possibility. Using examples ranging from classical sculpture to avant-garde literature, Burke demonstrates how art either reinforces or subverts dominant paradigms. A novel's narrative structure, for instance, might subtly endorse individualism or collectivism, while a painting's composition could evoke reverence, or an artist's choice of form and style is inherently ethical as it influences the audience's orientation toward the world. This argument anticipates later cultural theories that view art as a battleground for ideological contestation, positioning Burke as a bridge between formalist analysis and socio-political critique. Throughout the book, Burke interviews these themes with a keen attention to the pragmatic function of art. He recurrently returns to the idea that literature serves as equipment for living, a phrase he would later crystallize in his 1941 essay. Seeds are evident here. Art equips audiences with symbolic frameworks to navigate complexity, offering strategies for interpreting experience and confronting existential dilemmas. A tragic drama, for example, might provide a vocabulary for grappling with fate and free will, while a satirical poem could arm readers with critical tools to dissect society.